All right, guys. So we are doing our case study over Antonio Brown and kind of some mental issues or aspects that he kind of had. And then we'll be finishing with like a downfall and how he's no longer in the NFL. So to start off, Antonio Brown is a professional football player who plays wide receiver. Brown grew up in Florida where he participated in football and track in high school, which led to him receiving a scholarship from a small Division I school of Central Michigan University. In 2008, in 2009, he earned All American honors. And in the following year, in 2010, he was drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers in the sixth round. Um, Antonio Brown had become one of the best, if not the best, wide receivers in the league within his first or second year with Ben Roethlisberger as his quarterback. And throughout all 9 seasons with the Steelers, he accumulated 11,207 receiving yards with 74 touchdowns. He has been selected to 7 Pro Bowls and 4 All Pro first teams. Antonio Brown was once known as one of the hardest workers in the NFL at any position. However, in 2019, Brown was traded to the Oakland Raiders. However, they didn't make him the highest paid receiver in the league. As soon as he joined the Raiders, his career took a bad turn. He was fined by the GM for missing practices and unexcused absences, and was eventually let go by the Raiders. And about a week later, Brown was signed by the New England Patriots. And then later in September of the same year, he was released. After signing with the Patriots, there were a few allegations of sexual and personal misconduct against Brown. However, he put that beside him and continued to prepare for his first game as a Patriot. He made his season debut in Week 2 and caught a touchdown in a win against the Miami Dolphins. However, about 2 weeks later, he was cut by the Patriots. From 2018 to 2020, Brown was sued multiple times due to sexual misconduct by 2 different women. He also tossed some furniture out of his 14th floor apartment, nearly hitting a 22-month-old baby. He has been charged with felony burglary, a couple of misdemeanors, and after a holdout from Brown, he finally did turn himself in towards the later end of January of 2020. Despite being a fantastic athlete and potentially could have been one of the best wide receivers in the league, fame got to him as well as the money, and he made multiple mistakes that he cannot bring back. Some believe that these issues are linked to massive helmet-to-helmet hits he took from former Bengals linebacker Vontaze Burfict, one in 2016, and then a harder one in 2018.
So I'm gonna continue on the point of the hits from 2016 and 2018. First one being Vontez Burfict. If you've ever watched the NFL, you most people know him as a dirty player, as Vontez Burfict. He's always been in the news for dirty hits. Well, the one that Brown took in 2016 was a helmet when he was coming across on a post route. And if you know much about football, going across the middle as a wide receiver is like the scariest thing because you don't know what you're going to get yourself into because that's the thick of the defense. Well, when Brown decided to go on that post route, he went for the catch and Burfict hit him helmet to helmet, which ended up leading to him getting knocked out and basically being a rag doll on the field. A lot believe this led to symptoms of CTE as well as, concussion. Back during this time, the concussion protocol wasn't as severe of a hindrance as it is nowadays. People like you listen to players talk, they're like, I just want to get back out and play, but they're starting to make it to where it's harder to get back out after a big hit to the head. And they also have where cameras are now watching them to where if they take a hit to the head, they are sometimes allowed to stop play to be like, all right, this player needs to get through the protocol real quick and then continue play. Um, so that hit alone has led to some changes in the protocol that are much needed in today's game. CTE, like I said earlier, is one of the biggest benefactors from helmet to helmet collisions. Um, CTE is a neurodegenerative disease caused by repeated head injuries. Symptoms do not usually begin right away. They usually take many years to show up. Some of the symptoms are um, behavioral problems, mood problems, and problems with thinking or slur of speech. And it will get worse and worse over time, kind of like dementia. So a lot of people and experts are saying that Brown probably has CTE, just by looking at his behavioral issues since the Steelers. Um, he started to get into a lot of fights with Mike Tomlin, and Mike Tomlin being one of the hardest head of a coach. Um, he wasn't going to take any of that. So they ended up trading him. And with that, his anger issues and his moods just kept getting worse and worse. So people are starting to believe that CT is the main root of this issue.
Okay, so now I'm going to talk about the drama that Brown had with the Oakland Raiders. So after this fallout with the Steelers, he was traded to the Oakland Raiders for a third and fifth round draft pick. So it was reported in August of 2019, but it could have been going on in June or July from the training camp that Brown wanted to wear a helmet that he has worn over the past 9 seasons, like his whole time in the league. And basically, the league has come out and said that only certain helmets are going to be legal now, and that if there's not a legal helmet, players are going to get new helmets. It's not anything against any players like Brown. It's just that his helmet might not be as safe, and a new helmet might help better protect against hits to the head. So he was not the only player to have to deal with this. Star quarterbacks like Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers also were reported to have to switch their helmets. I'm sure that there were a lot of other notable players too, but those were the two that came out and had said that they needed to switch their helmets. Brown was not happy about this. He's very stuck in his ways. So he appealed grievances to the league several times, which failed each time because he didn't have a good enough reason other than like that's the helmet that he wants to wear. And if the league feels like the new helmets are safer, they're not gonna accept the grievance just because a star player is upset. He His old helmet was painted in Steelers colors, and equipment staff or management or even Coach Gruden took the helmet away and put it in the facility so he'd have to get a new one. He ended up breaking in and getting his old helmet, was painted Steelers colors, and painting Raiders colors all over it. So maybe people wouldn't think that he still had his old helmet, but people were able to notice the differences between the helmets. It's probably different shape or whatever. And then that just didn't work out for him. So he had a long back and forth with the league and the team, and he even threatened to retire, saying he doesn't need football, and just that he doesn't need football. The game needs him, but that he doesn't have to play. But he finally gave in and decided to wear the correct helmet. So this was only the start of stuff with Brown. So then, after all this helmet stuff, he began practicing, but he was kind of limited at practice, which people thought he just had a bum foot, maybe because he hadn't been practicing because he was holding out and all that stuff. But it turns out that this injury was a cryotherapy mishap where Brown did not wear the required footwear. I don't know if he wore the wrong type of shoes or didn't wear shoes, but since his feet got completely frostbitten, I would have to say he probably didn't wear any shoes. So his feet became frostbitten and started to blister all over, which really hindered his movement. It's hard to can't really run full speed when you just have blisters all up and down your feet. Um, and that's not as bad as when he quit on his team in Pittsburgh or when he was threatening to retire over a helmet, but that's definitely a kind of thing that he should be taking seriously. And if he ended up not being hurt for more than a couple weeks, but having frostbitten feet that could hinder you forever, or that could hinder you for months, and that's just not a risk you want to take when you're one of the best athletes in the league. So after this, once his feet started getting better, he took to social media on Instagram and Twitter and asked fans if they could find a helmet that he wants because he's still mad that he didn't win his grievance. This was strange, but it was okay until he included the phrase super prejudice unbelievable, kind of claiming that the league was going against him and only making new helmet rules because they didn't like him. which I just don't think is the case. Additionally to that, Brown also skipped practice later that day. Then a couple days later, on August 18th, Mike Mayock, who's the general manager of the Raiders, made a public statement about Brown. It was a long statement, but the main message was all in or all out, meaning either Brown needs to be showing up and caring or they're going to get rid of him. Then Mayock fined Brown $40,000 for missing practice, as well as being fined for a walkthrough 4 days later, which was prior to a preseason game against the Packers. This $40,000 fine shouldn't be the biggest issue for Brown. We saw his stats earlier. He was definitely making a lot of money with the Steelers, and he just got paid $30 million guaranteed dollars for the Raiders. So a $40,000 fine should be the least of his worries. Then, about a week later, 5 days before the season opening game against the Broncos, Brown posted an Instagram story whenever Mike Mayock, the general manager of the Raiders, sent him a letter of just detailing everything he was being fined for, which was now up to a total of $53,950. Still shouldn't be the biggest issue for Brown. I'd say the fines were definitely reasonable just because he was violating team misconduct, and Mike Mayock's not going to put up with that. He wants to run things the way he does it, and one star player isn't going to change that. Now is when things started to get really crazy, with a new story seeming to develop with Brown every day. So on September 4th, which was a Wednesday, the Wednesday leading up to their Monday night game the next Monday against the Broncos, everything was okay with Brown. He was practicing, seemed like he was on track to play, and then he saw Mike Mayock watching practice. And Brown tried to attack him. He called him names, including calling him a cracker, and he had to be held back by teammates. So not a good look for Brown. The next day, on September 5th, Brown missed practice, just didn't show up, and the team came out and said that they were going to suspend him, or planning on suspending him for the season opener. Then on September 6th, the next day, he made a very emotional apology to team captains. Then, according to head coach John Gruden, he was on track to play the season opener against the Broncos. But with all this happening, they put Brown on very thin ice, and they decide to void all his guaranteed money, which they are allowed to do if they violate team conduct. So this basically means that $30 million that they're guaranteeing him, Brown's gonna get that sometime during this season, but now they're voiding that, saying that they have the right to cut him if they want to, and they don't have to pay him that money. Then that night, he posted a video to YouTube, which was a private phone call between himself and John Gruden. John Gruden is a very personality-driven guy, so he actually loved that Antonio Brown did this, as reported, but seems a bit strange that he would like that. That's his privacy, and Antonio Brown is violating that. So then, the next day, September 7th, which is 2 days before their opening game, Brown took to social media to ask for his release. Then later, that was in the morning. Then around the next day, around 12 o'clock Eastern time, the Raiders released Brown, and then about 5 hours later, the Patriots signed Brown. So he was in Oakland for 6 months, did not play in a single game, barely participated in practice, didn't even participate in a preseason game, and he had all this drama happening.
All right, so now after Brown gets cut by the Raiders, or the Patriots decide that they want to do what they're known for, and they decide to sign him for a 1-year deal worth 15 million and 9 million guaranteed. He wasn't eligible to play in the first game, but he seemed to get that old work ethic back, and he was going to be ready for week 2 against the Dolphins. In this game, Brown caught 4 passes for 56 yards and a touchdown in a Patriots victory. The Friday following the Week 2 win, Brown was cut by the Patriots due to multiple ongoing allegations against him. The Patriots made this decision due to the team having no way to void his guaranteed money after just 3 more days. Leading up to Brown's Week 2 Patriots debut, Brown had sexual and personal misconduct levied against him. Between 2018 and 2020, Brown was sued multiple times due to sexual misconduct by 2 different women and tossing furniture out of his 14th floor apartment, nearly hitting a 22-month-old baby. Additionally, he had been charged with felony burglary, misdemeanor battery, and misdemeanor criminal mischief. So now, finally, after all of this drama, Brown decides to turn himself into authorities in January of 2020. In conclusion, Brown went from being a star of the NFL to being shut out of the NFL because of his behavior off the field. While he is still eligible to return, it is unlikely that a team will pick him up due to the risks. Brown seemed to have a level head before he began taking huge hits from guys like Burfict, which more than likely played a part in why his behavior has changed.